Taking a look at today's equity index futures markets, let's check in on the Nasdaq futures as they're realizing some higher price action today. Nasdaq futures coming off of 4 consecutive lower closes, and early in the session, Nasdaq futures traded down to the lowest level since the end of May before coming off those lows to trade higher by, I think, over 1% at one time. Currently up about 35 basis points on the day, well off the intraday highs, but still holding on to a gain right around the 14,725 level. And that's countering the selling pressure that we are experiencing in the other major equity index futures markets today, particularly as we move towards the close. And when you look at some of the driving factors, really one of the primary drivers today appears to be the reversal in the interest rate markets, treasury markets initially selling off hard, pushing yields up to the highest levels of this cycle and going back to 2007, in certain cases even earlier than that. We did see the 10-year yield go to 502 basis points, or just over that intraday, before backing off now, currently holding right around 485 basis points. So we did see some significant buying pressure in the treasury markets, moving those yields lower, the yield curve moving lower for the most part, and some higher price action in the equity index futures markets, at least early in the afternoon. We did see the S&P and the Nasdaq higher. The Russell and the Dow continue to struggle, but nonetheless, we did see some renewed strength, buying pressure in the equity markets in the middle of the day. Nasdaq futures, as I mentioned, able to hold on to those gains as we now are moving into the key week, I should say a key week, when you look at earnings starting tomorrow, really, when you look at some of the big Nasdaq names. So that's going to influence the markets as we move through the week. And you're seeing, again, some rotation here in the equity markets today. Nasdaq futures, as I mentioned, intraday lows, the lowest level since the end of May, but coming off those lows to hold on to a gain today. Dow, Russell, and the S&P giving up some ground. Now, the S&P basically was just slightly lower on the day. It was holding on to a gain up until late in the session. But really, when you look at the Nasdaq and the Dow, they were under pressure throughout the day, even though they came off their lows. Still unable to show some positive price action today, with the Nasdaq futures down about 75 basis points, the Dow futures down about 0.5%, and the S&P futures down slightly on the day. Nasdaq, the only gainer today, but bucking that 4-day trend to close higher in today's session.